Black CEO denied first class. Seat 5 minutes. Later, she owned the flight. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. People like you don't sit here. The words sliced through the first-class cabin like a blade through silk, precise, cold, and meant to draw blood. Every passenger in row 1 heard it. Every one of them looked up. The flight attendant stood firm, hand on the headrest, voice steady in its prejudice. "This seat's reserved for premium passengers," she added, loud enough to make sure the entire cabin could hear the reminder. Across from her, Alicia Monroe didn't move. Denim shirt, slim jeans, green silk scarf knotted at her neck, understated, elegant, deliberate. She sat still as marble, sunglasses catching the cabin light like armor. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Alicia. The flight from New York to Los Angeles hadn't even boarded completely. The hum of air conditioning mixed with murmurs of passengers all suddenly quiet as the attendant's voice carried again. "I'm asking you nicely," she said, leaning closer. "Move to economy, or I'll have security escort you off the plane." Alicia didn't blink. "Why?" The woman's lips curled. "Because that ticket you're holding doesn't belong to you." Alicia looked down at the boarding pass on her lap, seat 2 amperes. Horizon Air, first class, paid in full. Her nails tapped once, twice. "Then you should probably check your system," she said calmly. From the opposite aisle, a male attendant chuckled. "We've seen this before, fake printouts, borrowed names, happens all the time." The woman smirked, emboldened. "Sir, could you please find her real seat in the back?" He started down the aisle, but a soft voice interrupted. "It's valid." Heads turned. It was Emily, the junior attendant, holding a tablet that glowed with confirmation passenger. A. Monroe. Status, priority platinum. The senior attendant's tone turned sharp. "Emily, stay out of this." "But," "I said stay out." The words snapped through the air. Emily stepped back, shoulders stiff, the truth shrinking behind protocol. Alicia sighed, low and even. 12 years in customer service," she said quietly, "and you still haven't learned how to read a name." "Oh." The attendant's face flushed. "Excuse me?" Alicia didn't answer. She placed her sunglasses on the tray table, her gaze calm and unshaken. "Run my name again," she said. "And when you do, try saying it with respect." The attendant turned, muttering something under her breath. These people always think they can talk back. Phones tilted in every direction now. Someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" Another passenger murmured, "She's just sitting there, not doing anything." Alicia's hand brushed over her phone recording, unseen. Then came the next blow. The attendant yanked the boarding pass from Alicia's hand, held it up like evidence. "Fake," she said flatly. "We've got a fraudulent document in 2 amperes." Gasps spread like static. Alicia leaned back, exhaling through her nose. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You just made a very expensive mistake." The attendant frowned. "Is that a threat?" "No," Alicia said softly. "That's a fact." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the intercom crackled. "Cabin crew, prepare for takeoff." But the flight wasn't going anywhere yet. Because 5 minutes from now, the woman they were trying to throw out of first class would remind them all she didn't need a seat assignment. She owned the flight. The cabin settled into an uneasy silence, but Alicia didn't. She sat the same way she had the moment she boarded, spine straight, palms flat against her knees, eyes hidden behind lenses that reflected everything and revealed nothing. Most passengers saw a woman dressed plain, denim shirt, soft sneakers, a silk scarf folded like discipline around her neck. No designer logos, no diamond watch, no entourage, just calm. But that calm wasn't emptiness, it was calculation. 5 rows behind, someone whispered, "Why's she acting like she's in charge?" Another voice replied, "Because she probably is." Alicia glanced out the oval window. Her reflection stared back, still, grounded, unbothered. She'd done this before. She'd walked into rooms where assumptions spoke louder than introductions. At 27, she'd been mistaken for an intern at her own board meeting. At 33, security once stopped her outside a hotel she had built. Every incident carved the same scar, not on her skin, but in her patience. The flight attendant returned with forced authority. "Security will be here shortly," she announced, ignoring the uneasy looks from nearby passengers. "Until then, please remain seated." Alicia nodded once. "You should do the same." The words weren't loud, but they carried like command. From across the aisle, Emily, the young attendant, still held her tablet, fingers trembling. The data hadn't changed. The name glowed on the manifest. Monroe, Alicia. Priority Platinum, Executive Access. She looked up, voice almost a whisper. "It's real." The senior attendant shot her a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "Emily, step back." Alicia turned slightly. "What's your name?" she asked the younger woman. "Emily." "Thank you for telling the truth, Emily." Those words were simple, but they cracked the silence like thunder. A murmur spread through the first-class cabin, low, collective, unsure. The kind of sound that meant people were starting to see what they'd ignored. Alicia leaned back again, exhaling softly, as if she had all the time in the world. And she did. She wasn't there for comfort. She was there for confirmation, to see how her own airline treated a woman who didn't look the part. She adjusted her scarf, glanced toward the front where the attendant whispered into a phone, and smiled faintly, because Alicia Monroe wasn't testing the system anymore. She was documenting it. And the clock on her screen read 11:57 a.m. 5 minutes left before everything on this flight changed. "Ma'am, you're still in the wrong seat." The voice came again tighter, sharper, like a blade drawn twice. The senior attendant now had backup. A male crew member, broad-shouldered, all posture and protocol. His name tag read Brian. He folded his arms. "You can make this easy," he said, tone dipped in condescension. "Move to economy and we'll sort this out once we land." Alicia didn't move. "Sort what out?" Brian smirked. "Your mistake." Around them, boarding chatter stuttered into silence. A mother hushed her child. A man lowered his newspaper but didn't dare intervene. The cabin was no longer peaceful. It was pulsing, like a heart about to break rhythm. "Sir," Emily whispered from the galley, "the system shows." "I said we'll handle it." Brian cut her off, loud enough to sting. The senior attendant, Nicole, nodded at him, relieved to have an ally. "We've seen this before. People printing fake passes, pretending to be elite." Alicia raised an eyebrow. "Pretending?" Nicole tilted her chin up. "You think you can just walk in here, sit in first class, and act like you belong?" Alicia let out a slow breath. "I didn't act. I just sat down." Nicole scoffed. "You people always have an answer." The words dropped like acid. A few passengers gasped quietly. One man muttered, "Did she really just say that?" Alicia's gaze didn't waver. "And yet, here we are, you talking, me still sitting." Brian's patience cracked. He leaned closer. "Lady, don't make this worse for yourself." The irony made her smile. "I'm not the one making it worse." He reached for her boarding pass again, but Alicia placed her hand over it, calm, immovable. "Touch that," she said, voice quiet as thunder, "and you'll answer to someone far above your pay grade." Brian hesitated. The confidence in her tone didn't sound like bluff, it sounded like hierarchy. Nicole scoffed again, but there was a tremor in her voice now. "Security's on its way. You'll be escorted out before we take off." Emily took a step forward. "That's unnecessary. She's cleared." Nicole snapped. "Enough!" Alicia turned toward the younger woman. "Don't apologize for being right." For a heartbeat, the two locked eyes, one defiant, one learning. Then Alicia turned back to the crew. "You're not enforcing policy," she said softly. "You're enforcing prejudice." Nicole opened her mouth to reply, but the intercom crackled. "Cabin crew, please report to the front. Now." Alicia exhaled. "Right on schedule." Brian frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, standing slowly, her voice steady and deliberate, "you're about to meet your real passenger list." The tension snapped like glass, and somewhere near the cockpit, a phone began to ring. The air in the cabin had changed. It wasn't quiet anymore. It was charged, the kind of silence that comes right before something unravels. Nicole stood rigid near the aisle, clutching the torn edge of authority like it was a lifeline. Brian shifted beside her, arms crossed, scanning the rows for approval he wouldn't find. Alicia stayed seated, not a word, not a flinch. The hum of the air system filled the pause between breaths. Even the crying infant 2 rows back went still, as if the entire plane was holding itself in suspension. She reached down and smoothed the crease on her denim sleeve, one deliberate motion that felt almost ceremonial. Then she looked up. "You've made your point," she said evenly. "Now make it again without raising your voice." Nicole blinked. "Excuse me?" Alicia tilted her head, her tone still low, calm enough to sound dangerous. "If you're so certain I don't belong here, prove it. Pull up the manifest. Say my name out loud." The attendant froze, her throat tightening around pride. "I don't have to justify myself to you." Alicia nodded once. "That's the difference between us. I built a company that runs on verification. You run on assumption." Brian exhaled sharply, frustration leaking through his composure. "You're playing games." "No," Alicia said. "I'm documenting them." He frowned. "What?" Alicia's gaze dropped to her phone screen, dark, camera still rolling. "Everything you've said since boarding started. Every word, every name. It's all being logged." A wave of discomfort spread through the first-class cabin. Nicole's posture faltered. Emily's eyes widened. Passengers whispered, not sure if they should feel pity or awe. "Ma'am," Nicole started, voice trembling at the edges now. "You can't record." "I can," Alicia interrupted softly. "And I have." She leaned back, not smug, not gloating, just centered, like gravity had quietly shifted in her direction. The way she spoke wasn't defiance. It was truth delivered with the patience of someone who'd lived through this scene too many times to count. For a fleeting second, Alicia's mind drifted to an airport lounge years ago, where a clerk had once told her, "We don't serve people without corporate credentials." Back then, she'd smiled the same way she was smiling now, quiet, controlled, inevitable. Her voice returned, firm but gentle. "You've mistaken composure for weakness," she said. "That's your first mistake." Nicole tried to answer, but no sound came. The passengers could feel it. Something invisible had turned. The hierarchy was cracking, inch by inch, under the weight of stillness. And then, in that same calm voice, Alicia added, "Your second mistake was assuming silence means surrender." The hum of the engines deepened, almost like applause held back by metal. Somewhere near the cockpit, a door opened, and the real reckoning began to walk down the aisle. The aisle became a border authority on one side, truth on the other. Emily stood halfway between them, heart racing under the weight of silence. Her training told her to obey, but something deeper, older, quieter, told her to stand still and see. Alicia didn't look at her directly. She didn't have to. The calm in her posture was an invitation not to defend, but to witness. Nicole turned, voice brittle with anger. "Emily, go to the galley. Now." But Emily didn't move. Her hands clutched the company-issued tablet, the glow of the manifest flickering across her face. Passenger. A. Monroe Priority Platinum. Every pixel of that confirmation felt heavier now, like a truth pressing against her palms. "Emily," Brian snapped. "That's an order." Her voice came out small but clear. "Sir, she's on the list." Every head in first class turned. Nicole blinked hard. "What?" "She's on the manifest," Emily repeated, louder this time. "Seat 2 amperes, verified. Executive access." A tremor rippled through the cabin, quiet but undeniable. The passengers who had been whispering now held their phones steady, recording. One man muttered, "Told you something was off." Nicole's jaw tightened. "There's been a system error." "No," Emily said. "There hasn't." For a moment, the young attendant's voice trembled not from fear, but from conviction. The kind of courage that rises when silence becomes unbearable. Alicia finally looked up. "Thank you," she said softly. Just 2 words, but they landed like an anchor, solid, grounding, irreversible. Nicole tried to regain control. "You're overstepping your role, Emily." "With respect, ma'am," Emily replied. "So are you." Gasps. Even Brian's expression faltered. From the second row, a passenger, middle-aged, salt and pepper beard, spoke up. "She's telling the truth. I saw the screen from here." Another voice joined. "Why are you treating her like that? She's done nothing wrong." And just like that, the silence fractured. Whispers became words, words became voices, and voices became evidence. The cabin had turned into a courtroom, and the jury had started to side with justice. Nicole's eyes darted to Alicia, who remained still, composed, untouched by the chaos she had never needed to create. She simply was. Emily took a step closer, standing just behind Alicia's row now. Her voice was steadier. "You don't have to stand alone," she said quietly. Alicia's gaze softened not with gratitude, but recognition. She'd seen this before, a moment when truth found its voice in someone else. "Sometimes," Alicia said, her tone low, meant for Emily but heard by everyone, "all it takes to shift power is one person refusing to look away." The cabin fell still again, but the energy had flipped. Nicole realized too late control had already left her hands, and for the first time that day, Alicia Monroe wasn't the only one sitting tall. The captain's door opened. Out stepped a man in a pressed uniform, silver wings gleaming under the cabin lights. His face carried the kind of authority that expected obedience on sight. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was level but heavy. Nicole straightened immediately. "Yes, Captain. Passenger in 2 Amperes presented a suspicious ticket. She's refusing to move." The captain's eyes landed on Alicia. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to cooperate so we can resolve this peacefully." Alicia met his gaze, unshaken. "Then start by checking your manifest." Nicole cut in before he could reply. "We've done that. She's not supposed to be here." Emily's voice rose from behind her. "She is. I saw it myself." The captain hesitated. The hum of the engine seemed to grow louder, filling the gap between truth and authority. Alicia's tone didn't change. "You're standing in a cabin of witnesses, Captain. I suggest you verify before you escalate." His jaw tightened, part pride, part discomfort. "Security's already been called," he said. "They'll meet us at the gate if necessary." From across the aisle, a passenger muttered, "Unbelievable." Another whispered, "Just check the screen, man." Nicole shot them a look sharp enough to silence. "Sir, we can't let this delay departure." Alicia's response was calm, almost measured. "Delays cost money. I know. I own part of this airline." The words hung in the air like turbulence. The captain blinked. Nicole froze. Brian laughed once, nervously. "Yeah, right." Alicia tilted her head. "Then prove me wrong." The cabin pressure seemed to shift that invisible point, where confidence turns to doubt. Even the captain's composure cracked. Emily took another step forward, tablet trembling in her hand. "Her name's right there," she said. "A. Monroe. Executive access." The captain leaned closer to see for himself. The glow of the screen reflected in his eyes undeniable. He looked back at Alicia, unsure whether to apologize or retreat, but she saved him the choice. "Don't worry," she said quietly. "You'll understand who I am in a moment." And with that, she reached for her phone, the calm before the storm finally breaking. Nicole's voice snapped like static. "That's it. You're done." Before anyone could react, she leaned forward and snatched the boarding pass from Alicia's tray, waving it like a trophy of self-righteousness. "Fraudulent documentation," she declared, eyes darting around the cabin for validation. "Security will confiscate her belongings until this is verified." Brian moved without hesitation, reaching up to the overhead bin. He pulled Alicia's carry-on out and dropped it hard onto the floor beside her seat. The sound thudded through the aisle, heavy, humiliating. "Hey!" a passenger shouted from the back. "That's not how you treat people." Nicole ignored him. "Rules are rules," she said, her voice brittle but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You people think you can just walk in and—" The sentence died mid-air, strangled by gasps. Alicia was standing now, slowly, deliberately, not a word spoken, but her presence alone seemed to quiet the entire cabin. Her sunglasses were gone. Her eyes met Nicole's, calm and unblinking. "You just crossed the line between policy and theft," she said, voice low, steady, lethal. Brian straightened, half defensive, half afraid. "We're following protocol." "Show me," Alicia replied. "Show me the line in your manual that says you can seize a paying passenger's property without cause." Nicole stuttered. "Ma'am, please sit down." "No," Alicia interrupted softly. "You've taken enough from people who look like me while asking them to stay seated." Gasps again, sharper this time. Someone muttered, "Oh, she's not playing." Emily, frozen until now, bent to pick up the fallen bag. "This isn't right," she whispered. Alicia touched her hand gently. "Leave it." Then she turned to the captain, who hadn't moved since it began. "You've watched this unfold," she said. "You know what comes next." The captain opened his mouth but said nothing. "Good," Alicia said, almost to herself. "Then this recording will have context." She tapped her phone twice, a signal sent, a system triggered. Somewhere, far beyond the walls of that airplane, a notification reached an executive desk that bore her name, and for the first time that morning, the real flight had just begun. Alicia's fingers moved with precision, 2 taps on her phone, no hesitation, no sound. To everyone else, it looked like a calm woman checking a message. But miles away, in a glass office above downtown Manhattan, a system recognized her ID and activated an internal protocol known only to a handful of executives. On the plane, the captain's radio buzzed. He frowned. Command override? What? Before he could finish, Alicia spoke not loud, but with that effortless authority that doesn't need volume to own the room. Captain, she said, you're about to receive a call from Horizon Corporate Control. Answer it. Nicole crossed her arm. You can't just... But the intercom light blinked red. The captain's headset crackled, a voice coming through, sharp and urgent. This is Horizon Executive Division. Confirm passenger Alicia Monroe on board. Every muscle in his face stiffened. Confirmed, he said slowly. Then stand by for verification, the voice replied. Effective immediately. Miss Monroe holds oversight privileges for this flight. Continue per her discretion. The cabin went silent, the kind of silence that eats air. Nicole's mouth opened, but no words came. Brian took a step back, hand dropping from the handle of her luggage. Emily's eyes widened, trembling not from fear but awe. Alicia exhaled softly. Now, she said, return my belongings. Brian obeyed before he realized he was doing it. The bag landed gently this time, like an offering. Nicole swallowed hard. You're with corporate? Alicia's gaze didn't waver. I am corporate. Gasps rippled through the rows. A man near the window whispered, Wait, she owns the airline? Alicia didn't confirm she didn't need to. Power never explains itself. It only clarifies the misunderstanding. She adjusted her scarf, slid her phone back onto the tray, and said evenly, I asked for respect. Instead, you gave me a case study. Nicole's face flushed. Ma'am, please, let's talk privately. No, Alicia said, calm but final. We'll do this publicly. You chose the audience. And as the captain stood frozen with the radio still crackling faintly in his hand, Alicia Monroe, the woman they tried to remove, had just taken command of the flight at 30,000 feet before it even left the ground. The cabin door sealed with a heavy click. It sounded final, like a courtroom door shutting before a verdict. Every passenger felt it. They didn't know what was happening, but they could sense who was in control. Alicia stood, calm as glass. The phone in her hand vibrated once, a message received, time-stamped, secure. She read it, then looked at the captain. You've just been briefed, haven't you? He nodded slowly, confusion draining into realization. Ma'am, Miss Monroe. Say it clearly, she interrupted. He straightened, instinctively at attention. Miss Alicia Monroe, Executive Board Member of Horizon Air. The words carried like thunder through the cabin. Gasps, whispers, the scrape of disbelief. Nicole's lips parted, but no sound came. Her earlier confidence dissolved into colorless shock. You're her? Alicia nodded once. You called me a fraud in an airline I own. The line landed like a gavel. Brian froze beside the aisle, eyes darting to his colleague, then to the captain. Wait, you mean she... Yes, the captain said quietly. She's on the board, one of the founders. Emily's hand went to her mouth. She'd read the name before, in training manuals and policy bulletins, never expecting to see that same name sitting quietly in seat 2 amperes. Alicia turned toward the cabin, voice steady but carrying weight. I didn't board this flight for comfort. I boarded to evaluate how my customers are treated when they don't look like your expectations. A hush rippled across the aisle. Phones were still recording, hands trembling now, not from curiosity, but from awe. Nicole's face flushed crimson. Ms. Monroe, I didn't. You did, Alicia cut her off, calm but precise. You assumed, you humiliated, and you called it policy. She took a slow step forward. I built this company to move people with dignity, not to remind them of their place. The captain lowered his eyes. Miss Monroe, on behalf of the crew. Alicia raised a hand. Save it. The apology doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone who's ever been told, you don't belong here. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Authority radiated through stillness. Then she turned slightly toward Emily. You stood up when it mattered. Horizon could use more of that. Emily blinked back tears. Thank you, ma'am. Nicole tried one last breath of defense. I didn't know. That's the problem, Alicia said. You never ask who someone is until it's too late. The entire cabin was silent, the kind of silence that listens. Then, as the engines began to hum again, Alicia stepped back to her seat, calm as ever, and said the words that would echo across every corner of Horizon Air. Power doesn't need to shout. It just reminds you who signed your paycheck. The cabin felt weightless, not from altitude, but from realization. Every person who had doubted, whispered, or looked away now sat frozen in their own reflection. Nicole's legs wobbled as she backed into the galley, her name badge catching the light like a scarlet letter. Captain, she whispered. Please. I didn't mean, but the captain didn't answer. He was still staring at the message on his tablet, an official notice stamped executive override. Monroe Authority active. Brian, usually loud and sure, suddenly looked small. I swear I was just following her lead. Alicia turned to him, her tone unchanged. And that's how bad policy survives when people follow, not question. A murmur broke among the passengers. One woman in a red blazer said softly, "She warned them." Another added, "Imagine treating your own boss like that." Phones were still recording, but the energy had shifted. The cameras no longer hunted drama. They documented justice. Emily stood a few steps behind Alicia, wide-eyed but steady. She looked at Nicole trembling, pale, searching for a way out, and said quietly, "Maybe start with an apology." Nicole's lip quivered. "Miss Monroe, I didn't know who you were." Alicia nodded once. "And if I'd been anyone else, you still wouldn't have cared. That's the truth, isn't it?" Nicole swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am." Silence pressed in. Even the engines seemed to quiet for her reply. Alicia drew a slow breath. "Then today's lesson won't end in humiliation. It'll end in accountability." She turned to the captain. "Patch me through to corporate HR. Immediate suspension for crew members, Nicole and Brian pending investigation. Emily stays." He hesitated only a second before obeying. "Yes, ma'am." As the words left his mouth, a hush rippled through the cabin. Brian's access badge blinked red, then Nicole's. It was quiet, almost merciful, the sound of systems doing what justice often can't. Act fast. The passengers didn't cheer. They just watched, wide-eyed, realizing they'd witnessed something rare the exact moment arrogance met its owner. Alicia adjusted her scarf and sat down again, serene. The flight wasn't even airborne, but she'd already landed a message. The cabin lights dimmed slightly, but no one moved. The air itself felt suspended between guilt and awe. On the captain's tablet, confirmation codes flickered green. Suspension processed. Access revoked. Nicole's badge blinked once, then went dark. Brian's tablet logged him out automatically. Their authority gone, erased, like it had never existed. Nicole stared at the black screen in disbelief. "It logged me out," she murmured. Alicia's gaze stayed on her. "No," she said softly. "It corrected you." Brian turned, pleading now. "Miss Monroe, I was only doing my job." Alicia's tone stayed calm, but the words cut like glass. "Your job was to serve passengers, not profiles." He dropped his eyes, shame washing over him. From the back, a passenger muttered, "This is what accountability looks like." Another added, "Finally." The captain cleared his throat carefully. "Miss Monroe, corporate HR has confirmed your directive. Both crew members are relieved of duty, effective immediately. I'll have replacements dispatched before takeoff." Alicia nodded. "Good. They can take the jump seats until then." Nicole's voice cracked. "Ma'am, please." Alicia didn't answer. She turned to Emily instead. "Escort them to the galley. Make sure they're comfortable, but not in anyone's way." Emily hesitated. "Yes, ma'am." Nicole moved past her, tears threatening but pride refusing to break. Brian followed in silence. The aisle felt longer than it had minutes ago, a runway of consequence. When the galley curtain closed, the entire cabin exhaled. The man in the red tie, the same one who had been whispering earlier, spoke first. "I've flown Horizon for years. Never seen leadership like that in person." Alicia smiled faintly. "Leadership isn't about being seen. It's about what you do when everyone's watching." A few passengers clapped, softly at first, then louder. Emily blinked in surprise. Alicia simply nodded toward them, acknowledgement, not pride. "Let this moment remind you," she said, voice steady but low enough that the cabin leaned in to hear. Respect isn't something you earn with a uniform. It's something you lose when you forget your humanity. The captain stepped forward again, humbled. Miss Monroe, shall we continue preparations for departure? Alicia fastened her seatbelt, calm returning like gravity. Yes, Captain. Let's fly. He gave a short nod, the kind used only in the presence of someone who outranked him in more ways than paperwork. As he disappeared behind the cockpit door, Alicia looked out the window. Dawn light was spilling across the tarmac, a new day rising on old lessons. Her phone buzzed again, a message from corporate, incident logged, policy revision initiated. She smiled slightly, whispering to herself, good, because justice, when done right, doesn't echo. It just takes off. The engines roared to life, a deep, steady hum that felt less like noise and more like closure. Passengers settled back into their seats, though their eyes stayed fixed on Alicia Monroe, the woman who had rewritten authority without raising her voice. She sat in silence, head tilted toward the window, watching sunlight break across the runway. Her reflection looked back at her calm, grounded, and entirely in control. Emily approached softly. We're ready for takeoff, Miss Monroe. Would you like a drink before we depart? Alicia smiled. Just water. The rest can wait until the air's clear. Emily nodded, then hesitated. I've never seen anyone handle something like that before. Alicia glanced up, her voice quiet but resolute. That's because most people think strength has to be loud. It doesn't. A few passengers nearby caught the line, whispering it under their breath as if it were scripture. From the galley curtain, Nicole peeked out, once eyes swollen, hands clasped, and caught Alicia's gaze. Alicia didn't look away, didn't gloat, didn't scold. She simply nodded once, a silent acknowledgement that accountability had been served. Then she turned back to the window. The plane began to roll. The runway stretched ahead like a promise. Alicia spoke softly, mostly to herself, but the microphone on the nearby intercom caught it just enough for those closest to hear. Power isn't proven by how much you take from others. It's proven by how much dignity you protect, even when they try to take yours. The engine surged. The cabin lifted. Light filled the windows like applause. No one said a word. They didn't need to. Everyone on board knew they'd witnessed something bigger than a flight delay. They'd witnessed a reckoning. As the plane climbed above the clouds, Alicia closed her eyes, breathing evenly. Somewhere below, systems were rewriting policy in her name. Justice didn't scream that day. It simply took its seat and flew.